Bonjour. Today we are going to learn about le futur simple. To form the future tense in French, you add the future endings to the entire infinitive of verbs that end in er or ir. You drop the final e before adding the endings to re verbs. Let's have a look at the following. Taking our regular er verb like parler, using the infinitive, our stem is the entire infinitive. Now what we're going to be putting on there are our endings. And it's helpful to remember the endings by thinking that these endings are all the last syllable of all of the forms of avoir. So you would have je parlerai, tu parleras, il, elle ou on parlera, nous parlerons, vous parlerez, and finally, il ou elles parleront. Now let's have a look at a regular IR verb, finir. We do the same thing where we take the infinitive, make it our stem, and then we add the endings to get je finirai, tu finiras, il, elle ou on finira, nous finirons, vous finirez, ils, elles finiront. And our last group of regular verbs that we're going to look at are the ones that end in er, e. So taking our infinitive, we drop the final e, and then we add our endings. J'attendrai, tu attendras, il, elle ou on attendra, nous attendrons, vous attendrez, ils ou elles attendront. So you are going to be using this for all of your regular verbs in these families. Now, talking about le futur simple and les verbes irréguliers, chances are very good that if a verb is irregular in the present tense, its futur simple stem will also be irregular. Of course, there are going to be exceptions, but it's a very good rule of thumb to know that if you're dealing with an irregular verb, you have to give it a second thought about, is this stem irregular? For now, the verbs être, faire, aller, and avoir have an irregular stem in the future tense because we know that they are irregular verbs in the present tense. For être, these are our forms. So make sure that you study them and that you know these quite offhand. Faire, they start with je ferai, tu feras, etc. Aller is something that does not look at all like any of the verbs or any of the irregular forms. J'irai, tu iras, etc. And then now looking at avoir, it's also one that does not look very much like the forms that we've seen in the present tense. J'aurai, tu auras, etc. So these are just basically things that need to be studied and we need to commit them to memory. Now, how we use the future tense, it's not commonly used in spoken French. You use aller plus the infinitive more often to express the future. However, you must use the future tense after quand when the main verb in the sentence is in the future tense. So looking at a couple of examples, je te ferai un bon repas quand tu seras à Paris. So you notice that je te ferai un bon repas that's the main verb, fera, ferai, and then when you see the word when, you will be in Paris. So we use those together. Here's another example. Quand tout le monde sera là, je mettrai la viande au four. And again, we've used the future tense for both verbs in this sentence. So now let's have some practice. You have these sentences here, which you're going to try to rewrite in the future tense. So you can pause, and then when you're ready, you can look and see what the answers are. Number 5 had at least 3 verbs for us to to work with, so that was pretty good practice. And keep looking for videos in the future where we will be talking about the other irregular verbs. Au revoir.